Oh boy, it's the debate that no one ever tires of, abortion. And so we're going to talk about that. But we have two great guests. Would you like to introduce yourself first,
Sure.
Kristan?
Thanks for having me, Tim. I'm Kristan Hawkins. I'm president of the Pro-Life Generation Students for Life. I'm a mom of 4, so it's really exciting to be here with you today.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. We got Ryan hanging out. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Ryan Phipps. I'm a pastor in Bethesda, Maryland. No one knows where Bethesda is, but it's the DMV, the DC metropolitan area.
I suppose we'll just start jumping into it. What are the opinions here? I mean, you're pro-choice, Ryan?
Yes.
So do you want to get started, explain what your views are, and then we'll just go nuts?
Yeah, I mean, so my views are less religious, even though I'm a pastor. I think that I don't want to live in a country where the state or the federal government tells people what to do with their bodies. I believe that one of the things we can celebrate in America is that we can choose the kind of life we want to lead, provided that it doesn't injure ourselves or others.
But that's what abortion is. It injures another.
Well, I was just doing my opinions at this point.
Oh,
but
well.
yeah.
Sure.
Well,
I mean, I think
roll.
I think that's the fundamental question here is what is abortion and what does it do and the harms? Because absolutely, I think that
You're talking about life begins at conception then, right?
Well, yes, we all know life begins at conception. Biologists confirm that life begins at conception.
Would you disagree?
I would, yeah.
Well,
when do you think you became you?
When did I become me?
Yeah, when did you come into existence as Ryan?
On September 9th of 1976, when my body left my mother's body and was detached and I began to breathe and live on my own.
You weren't living before you were evacuated out of the womb?
I had to be connected to my mother's body in order to be alive.
But you were alive because things were happening, right? Because you didn't magically, your mother's vaginal canal is not magical. It doesn't turn a non-living entity into a living entity. You were alive, you were born, and you changed locations. Now your degree of dependency changed, but you were still alive. Right? Cellular reproduction was happening. You were growing, you were metabolizing food into energy. So if you look at the biological markers for what is alive and what is life, you were alive. We live in a country with laws where we have the freedom to choose.
What does freedom mean if you look it up in a dictionary?
We have the freedom to choose lots of things, but you don't have the freedom to choose to
Do you
end
know
the
what
life
the
of
word
another human being.
heretic means?
Oh, yeah, I do. I'm sitting, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the word really means, honestly?
Well, I think
And
if we're going to
so-
look at heresy, we think about, and I was like looking at something you had written in
I think that-
2022 when Roe was reversed. You said God is a pro-choice God, but yet when you look at scripture, and I didn't really want to get into religion on this debate,
I don't
but
want to live
when
in a
you look at
country, though, where
scripture,
your
there's
religious
lots of scriptures
beliefs
that God's not
govern.
pro-choice.
but I see.
That would be a heretic. Pastor.
Your
Someone who
beliefs
says that
are
God is pro-choice.
religious.
That
These
is
are religious
heretical to
opinions.
But so-
Christianity. I think the question for you, Pastor, is: are you saying you don't believe that there are some things that are always morally wrong, and there's some things that are always like? You believe that there is right and wrong for some things, right? Do you believe that?
I believe that morality is obviously something personal, that I have my own moral code that I believe inside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that morality, societally speaking, and I think that history shows this very clearly, is that morality is relative.
Wow.
What history shows, you said?
Yeah, the ways
That's a really
that we
shocking
have.
statement to come from a Christian pastor.
I
That's
can't
why
wrap my mind around
That's why I want the pastor to answer. So in Maryland, where you live, in November, there's going to be a ballot referendum. On the ballot in Maryland is a constitutional provision that would allow a woman through any stage in pregnancy for any reason to choose to end the life of the child. Are you going to vote yes to put that in the Maryland Constitution?
Any
in
stage
November?
in pregnancy. So
Up
where
to the
does
moment
that?
of birth, all 9 months for
So
any
as
reason.
long as the body of the baby is inside the vaginal canal? That's what we're talking about?
Yes, inside of the womb or inside of the vaginal canal. Are you going to vote, Pastor Ryan's going to vote yes? Are you going to vote yes on that?
Oh, I've answered all these questions. My answer is I think that the mother should be allowed to choose.
So you're going to vote yes to put abortion up until the moment of birth in the Maryland Constitution
I'm
in
going
November.
to vote yes to allow a mother to choose.
To choose abortion. Well,
I mean,
Tim and I kind of agree that
200 years from
97%
now.
of abortion should be unavailable.
Yeah, elective abortion is wrong.
Do you agree that 97% of abortion should be unavailable?
I think that abortion should be legal if the woman chooses it.
When do you think the child of the womb bears? Because I was looking at some of your past op-eds this week, and you talked about image bearers. When do you think the child in the womb becomes an image bearer of the Creator?
I think I have theological opinions on that, but we're talking about laws.
We're talking about science.
Okay. Well, let's talk about science then.
Do you think a child who you just said could be aborted, it bears the image of God?
That's an unscientific question.
Okay, let me ask you the unscientific question. You just said you would tolerate all of abortions, because I tried to give you an olive branch saying, do you agree that 97%? You said no. So you want all abortions to be legal because you think a mother should get to choose.
Yes.
Do you think those children that are aborted bear the image of our Creator? Do you think they were created in the image of God?
That's not a scientific. You're asking a
I
theological
I'm
question.
asking you a non-scientific question. Let me ask you a non-scientific question. Do you believe a child who's going to be aborted, who you've just acknowledged, you believe that children can be aborted legally?
Yes.
Do you believe they bear the image of God?
A human child in the womb?
Yes, a human in the womb. Does that human in the womb bear the image of God?
I think that what you're calling child in the womb is a potential child.
The human, so I won't use the word, if child's triggering, let me not use the word child. The human in the womb.
The potential human in the womb.
Well, no, it's a human because it's not a koala bear. When I have sex with my husband, I can only reproduce one thing. The law of biogenesis guarantees it.
But you're asking me for my opinion, and I'm saying I don't agree with the words you're using. My opinion is that it's a potential human.
What species is it in the womb? This clump of cells that are in the woman's womb, what species are those clump of cells?
It's the species of whatever it's being birthed in.
So it's a human. It's a Homo sapien.
It's a potential Homo sapien.
Well, it is a Homo sapien. It's not in existence. But potential means it's not in existence.
No, it doesn't.
It's in existence, right? It
Potential means
growing.
it can become that.
It's human DNA.
Yeah, it's definitely human DNA.
Yes, it's human
Okay,
DNA.
so the human DNA in the mother's womb, does that human DNA bear the image of God?
Is it a human or DNA? What is it? Can I have a conversation with a strand of DNA?
So you don't think cells in the womb?
Now I'm asking you a question.
No, you can't have a conversation with a strand of DNA.
So it's not the same thing.
Here's a question.
So you think birth makes the human? Because this is what I was reading this beautiful prayer you
You're
did
trying to talk about it in a binary state. That's not the way that it works.
You wrote a beautiful prayer about mothers who endured infertility and mothers who endured miscarriage. Mm-hmm. And you talked about the image of God. And this is what I'm trying to figure out, because if you're saying abortion should be legal in all 9 months, yet you're a pastor and you've talked about the image of God, that's a really big question that needs to be answered.
Okay, but you're not talking about that. You're going somewhere else.
When does it become a child made in the image of God? When does it become a human made in the image of God?
If you found just like a human finger, does that bear the image of God in any way?
I don't think so, but I've never thought about that before, honestly.
And a genuine question, because I don't understand.
I mean, I would recognize that it's part of a human, right?
Yeah, it's part of it.
I don't know. I don't know ultimately the greater point of the image of God for the child. I was just curious, is the subsequent parts of a human bearing the image of God in any way? I'm not a Christian. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I would. Are you asking me if I think a finger is
Like what makes humans were created in the image of God.
That's what Christians believe.
Right. And so I'm wondering if
Jews and Muslims as well.
is it the whole or the parts? I'm reminded of the ship of Theseus. You guys are familiar with the ship of Theseus?
I know the song by Zayo, which is awesome, but I don't know. Yeah.
You have a ship. You take one piece off and replace it. You over time replace one part of the ship, and then you take all of the parts you removed and build another ship. Now you have two. Which one's the original ship of Theseus? So I'm genuinely wondering, is the image of God representing the whole of God and man is in that image, or are the subsequent parts also a subsequent image of God in some way? I don't know. General question. I'm not trying to.
No.
I don't know what the ultimate point of
I mean,
the
if
image
you
of God
want
was,
to
but
out there theological view, I mean, I think you could go a bunch of different ways. You could say that God is a spiritual being, and therefore man's spiritual parts belong to God, and the material parts belong to the material creation. I think
I agree with that actually.
I lean more in that direction. There are other people that think that, and I don't know how they get there because God is not flesh and blood, but they choose to take the triune nature of man and say, look, God made us just like the Christian God, a triune being. We're a spirit and a mind and a body, and God is a Father and a Son and a Holy Spirit. But these are theological opinions.
Well,
they don't
God
have
did
anything to
become
do with
flesh.
abortion.
Well, no.
Well, so we are gonna wrap up. So I don't know if you want to final
but
questions.
why
final
would you
thoughts.
grieve? So, like going back to this prayer, this Huffington Post blog you did, you talked about women grieving miscarriage. Why would women grieve human DNA? What's there to grieve if it's nothing?
Because they wanted to have the baby and it didn't make it.
Was it alive?
I have no idea. Here, would you like let me get real.
Well, have you ever seen an
Hold on.
ultrasound?
Let me get
the child's
real.
alive.
Let me just get real personal with you for a second in the event that you think I'm a baby killer. I have two wonderful children. We tried to have three. Between the two children, my wife miscarried on our toilet. I was out of my mind. I didn't know what to do. The first thing that I did, and I don't even remember reasoning it, it's just where my consciousness went. I went into the kitchen and I got one of those soup spoons, and there's a bloody mess in the toilet bowl, and I'm trying to find the miscarried pieces. I wasn't attached to a person that existed. I had never known this person. I hadn't had emotional connections with them, conversations, changing their diaper, etc. For me personally, Ryan Phipps, there was not any of that God stuff going on. This is God's image. This is a human who is hurting right now. No one was hurting except for me. And so that I am not able to look at what happened there as this is a human being that is dying in front of me. It had already died inside.
That's what happens in miscarriage.
And so
what were you trying to collect? Because you said miscarriage pieces, which is an inaccurate term.
Because I don't know I wasn't able to find anything.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes with miscarriage, depending on what stage the mother was in, how late the pregnancy, but women find
I'm
the
simply
babies,
trying to say
their
that
babies in toilet bowls with chemical abortion.
I think I'm a good dad. You
sure
would
you
have
are.
to ask my children. I am not interested in killing babies. I am interested in the federal government not telling women what to do with their bodies. Not because of this instance alone, but once the government starts down that road of telling me what I can do with my bodies, I no longer have any hope for the world that my children will grow up in.
Don't you think 1 million abortions a year sort of necessitates we have this conversation? I met this man last week, and I'm still pretty traumatized from it, Tommy, at Florida International University. He drove 4 hours across the state of Florida. And my bodyguard immediately hairs were raised because he came barreling towards me. We didn't know this gentleman. Tommy stopped in front of me and began bawling. He pulled out a crumpled picture of an ultrasound out of his pocket. His daughter, who he and his girlfriend had named, her name was Clementine. They were broken up. He had gone away for a week, and his girlfriend was pressured to have an abortion. She had an abortion at 20 weeks. It was a free abortion at Cherry Hill in New Jersey because they told her they would do the abortion for free if she donated her daughter's body to science for research. And
that was her choice.
And Tommy was distraught. Tommy was bawling for hours. And he said, I had no say in this. This was my daughter. I couldn't protect her. I've called the abortion clinic every day trying to retrieve her body because all I want is her body. I'm buying a plot of land. I want to bury her body. This is my daughter. Mm-hmm. I had no say. My daughter was killed and I had no say. Her mother now regrets it and I have no idea what to do. Do you think there's anything wrong? Do you think Tommy should have had any say in whether or not his daughter, who he has the ultrasound of, who is 20 weeks, so like 1.5 weeks away from viability, do you think there was anything wrong with that situation? Or do you think it was just choice?
I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think that's the way that it's supposed to work.
Oh. Pastor, your comments today are shocking. And quite honestly, those comments are the very ones that actually led me to start researching the Catholic Church and why I came home to Catholicism, because it's heretical what you were saying. It's shocking.
Exactly.
Final
It's
thoughts, sir.
Choice, right? Heretical.